Everybody to the first Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting. Special thank you to Annie Pubo and Matt Glenn for bringing this to my attention so that we could put this in place to stand up and support the bike and pedestrian plan that we've had in place in Portsmouth. And, thank you again to our city staff. Peter Rice is the Director of Public Works. Eric Eby is our city engineer. And they're both on parking, traffic, and safety with me. And we're really hoping that for a seamless collaboration between the two so that the bike and pedestrian infrastructure can get woven into parking, traffic, and safety and projects and whatnot. So, and for those of you that don't know me, I'm Annie Hopkins. I'm the city councilor that started this nonsense. And then we also have Stephanie Secord and Susan Morel, who is our city lawyer.
Yeah.
City attorney. And how should we, what do you think?
So, it's your meeting, so you're the chair.
Voted chair yet? Don't they have to vote me?
Yeah, they would have to.
Okay.
Yes, presumably. Whoever the chair is will help with the staff to set up an agenda, for future meetings. But I think what you sent out in the packet gives you somewhat of a guideline for how you want to proceed. And I think Peter and Eric might have some helpful hints on the process of meetings and boards. And I have just a few comments to sort of orient everybody to being a board member.
Okay.
For the sake of minutes, it would help if everyone would introduce themselves.
Yes, we're gonna go around and do introductions. Yeah. Why don't we say our names, where we live, because this actually is not just a Portsmouth resident group, which is exciting, since we want to look at regional connectivity as well. And what you're most looking forward to being on the committee. I'll go first. Annie Hopkins. I live here in Portsmouth in Atlantic Heights, and I am excited to build an infrastructure that a mom of a toddler would feel comfortable biking anywhere around town, say from her son's house, from our house in Atlantic Heights to his best buddy's house in Elmwood Park. That's what I'm excited to build.
I'll go next. I'm Eric Eby. I'm the city's traffic and transportation engineer. And I live in Rochester, but spend most of my time here. And looking forward to working with this committee to get some input on issues that you see around the city and things that we can improve. Because if you're out there more on bikes than I am, or walking around the city, you see items that need attention, and that's really looking forward to getting input from you guys.
Everyone, I'm Ryan Harper. I live in Portsmouth in Elmwood Park. It's a trend you're going to pick up here really quickly. I'm excited I love this city, and I'm excited to see it become more walkable, more bikeable, and become a magnet for folks who want to do those things.
And I'm Tyler Garzo. I also live in Elmwood Park. We found a cluster.
Cluster.
My goal is to make the city less car centric at the same time that it becomes more bike and pedestrian centric.
My name is Matt Glenn. In Elwyn Park, Harrison Ave. Before that, I lived in the West End and Lincoln Street neighborhood, so a couple parts of town. I'm excited about the whole bike network plan, making progress. In particular, maybe safe routes to schools. I have a 5th grader heading off to the middle school soon, and a Dondero 3rd grader.
My name is Dawn Perhosian. I have been in Portsmouth for the better part of 23 years and have recently moved to Newburyport. And I own a bike tour business here, I think our 11th year. And I'm also on the Sabre and Seacoast Pedal It Forward board. And it's just making sure all of our guests are safe and feel comfortable riding on the streets behind their tour guide. So that's why I'm here.
I'm Stephen Longstaff. I live next to Annie. We have a lovely little neighborhood in Atlantic Heights, but I feel like we don't have much in terms of getting point A to point B, along with other neighborhoods that I see a lot as well. So I ride my bike a lot. I love it. I also have a daughter who's fifth grade going into sixth grade. I would love to see for a way for her to get around safely with her friends and also for me to enjoy cycling around here more.
My name is Patrick Daly. I live on Wybird Street. I've been there for 34 years. I've been walking my entire life, so I'd like to bring a walking perspective. I lived before coming to Portsmouth in 1987, I lived in Fairbanks, Alaska. And so if I have been walking all my life and I walked in Fairbanks, Alaska, there must be something wrong with me.
Nope, something wrong with the rest of us.
My name is Ann Torres. I live in Exeter, although I work and recreate in Portsmouth a lot. I am excited to hopefully work on bringing greater safety and awareness about cycling and walking and running to the greater Seacoast area, Portsmouth included. And this might be a more long-term goal, but really changing the culture and the attitude toward those who choose to commute or recreate in this way.
I'm Annie Proubeau. I live on Bartlett Street, so West End. I'm here because I didn't think I would see this day. Sorry. I didn't want to say this. I am so grateful that this is happening. I'm looking forward to even better bike infrastructure. I know great things have been done in the last 10 years, and I'm looking forward to being able to ride my bike from my house to downtown or my house to Matt's house in a safe and safe way.
I'm Bill Lyons, and I retired after a long career as a multimodal transportation planner at the US DOT's Research Center in Cambridge, and including specialties in walking and biking. And since I retired, I've been spending a lot of time on Portsmouth multimodal planning, and I'm very much a believer in the city council's make Portsmouth a multimodal city. And I'd love to see walking, biking get a bigger mode shift and a balance. And I'm all about connectivity. So I'd like to see walking, biking connected to transit and longer destinations, as well as single trips, recreation, as well as utilitarian purpose types of trips. And I think there's a great potential because we're starting at a very low level.
Peter Rice, Director of Public Works. I was a founding director of SABRE when it was Seacoast Area Bicycle Routes before it became Bicycle Riders. I was involved in getting the overpass bridge to Pease built. And that was a major undertaking, and we were really focused on creating a network to provide safe transit throughout the city. And I see this as an opportunity to continue that effort. That was over 26 years ago that we did that. And we had, a much grander vision, and the Esplanade down the North Mill Pond, which is coming to fruition, is part of that. So it's exciting to see the energy and enthusiasm. And I know I've interacted with a lot of you folks, and as a director of public works, I oftentimes come across as a wet blanket. But that is the role I have to play at times. But I look forward to this committee and the continuing the efforts to improve bicycle safety as well as connectivity throughout the city.
Sorry, you live on South Street, right?
And I do. I live on the corner of South and Newcastle Ave.
Right.
So I'm Susan Morrill. I'm the city attorney. I live in Portsmouth. I'm in the West End. I fully support your efforts and look forward to seeing what you come up with to support the city's efforts here. And the city legal department is here to assist and support all of its boards, committees, commissions in any way that we can. And so if you have any questions or you want to chat about anything in legal, just give us a call. We're up on the 4th floor.
Stephanie Secord, minute taker, agenda poster, put things on the website at your service.
Infrastructure extraordinaire.
Can I add a PS, longtime resident of Portsmouth on Mendham Avenue and co-chair of the Sustainability Committee.
Yep, and I was gonna give a shout out too. So the bike and pedestrian plan update, we have the project team, Eric Eby, Matt Glenn, Ann Pubo, Bill Lyons, and Peter Rice all were involved in the document.
And
So
2014.
and the 2014 one. Yes, so we have some real a good depth of understanding of what's in here, and also a very shallow depth of understanding, at least on my end, and that's important too. Because we get to ask questions, we get to, we see things differently in different lights, so everybody's voice is important here, whether you've been multimodal transportation expert for decades, which is lovely, or you're just a mom who wants a better biking experience or walking experience with her kids. So I thank you guys all for being here. Do you want to start with setting up? Let's get the ground rules.
Okay.
What's the rules? Oh, and I should say Colleen Garcia did email. She's not able to attend because she's about to pop with the baby, and she was like, I thought I could make it, but I'm really pregnant. I'm like, okay, you can just
Fair.
excused. She was like, excuse. Could be having a baby any day now. Anyway, okay.
All right, so try not to make this too boring, but you may be aware when you go onto the city website to the city clerk's department, and then you go under boards in the drop down. In that drop down, there's a section for volunteer handbook and applications. So that's where you may have filled out an application, become a member of the committee. But it also has what we adopted over a year ago. It's called our Boards, Commissions, Committee Handbook for Volunteers. So within the handbook, there are a number of policies embedded within it, city policies that you should be aware of. But what we tried to do with creating this handbook is to give just a very, high level overview of what your responsibilities are as a member of a public body, because now you are a public body. And in New Hampshire, there are strict rules about how public bodies govern themselves. So we talk a lot about what it is to be a member of a committee, what your relationship is with the city council, with other boards, the public, how to interact, and going through there, you're going to find that the policies include a non-discrimination policy, social media policies, and the standards of conduct and ethics policy for volunteers. So those need to familiarize yourself with them. It was our intention to have everybody sign off on those in what we call a Power DMS system. I'm not sure if that's actually operating at the moment, but for sure, take a minute to look at the handbook, look at the policies in there. So it's a lot of basic information. The rules and regulations around public bodies are all found in what we call the right to know law, that you've probably heard that term. It's in 91A. And essentially, you as a body, all of your business needs to be in public. So that's the transparency, open government, constitutional protections for the citizens. So you as a quorum, which would be a majority of your board, if there are a majority of you together and you're talking about business for this committee, the committee's business, you are conducting a meeting. under the law. And all meetings need to be noticed and posted in a public place. And we need to have meeting minutes, and we record meetings and so forth. So what you have to keep in mind, your cluster over there in Elwyn Park, as long as you don't have a quorum, you're free to talk about things related to this committee. But if you have a quorum, and I haven't counted you all, so 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. So, and maybe 11 with.
11.
Yeah.
And Fred, yeah. So 12.
Yep, 12. So majority,
You include staff.
no.
Okay.
I would.
Yeah.
So
So, yeah.
7 of you. So hopefully you won't have any inadvertent meetings or conversations. Anyways, so once you're all together and you're talking business, I don't know how many of you have been on a board before or a committee before, but in New Hampshire and most boards and commissions, we follow sort of the guidelines of Robert's rules, sort of the basic, you'll elect a chair, the chairperson will, help you put together agendas, and then you'll follow through the agenda. And, even the city councilors raise their hands. They wait for the mayor to recognize them, so you're not talking over each other, because you also want to have a good record, right? So this is being recorded. Stephanie's going to try to put together some minutes. So it's helpful to just keep those things in mind. And then you'll also have some interaction with the public, and you'll decide if you want to have some public comment opportunities at some portion of your meetings. And you'll have to decide if you want to sort of follow along the council rules where it's limited to 3 minutes, because otherwise you could end up with somebody who wants to talk to you for an hour. And you want to try to get your business done and not be here until after midnight. Those are sort of the general things that are discussed in the handbook, and then the policies are in there for you to look at. And the staff liaisons here are going to help you out enormously and give you all the support that you need to work with your projects. And then the other thing to consider is that, and think about and realize, is that you're here really as an advisory board. You're a blue ribbon committee that the council voted to enact, to give the city council some guidance and advice. But they continue to be the policymakers for the city and sort of the final word. But they're certainly going to appreciate any of your input and your suggestions and any directions and advice that you may give them. And those directions will go through Councilor Hopkins to the city council doing reports back. So that typically goes on a city council agenda. There's a report back from a committee. And then sort of that's how the communication evolves. And that's how things can get done, hopefully, and progress can get made. So if you have any concerns about what's in the handbook, any of the policies, there's a conflict of interest policy that you should be aware of. I don't know that it's really going to apply to your committee work. But just take a look at those. And if you have any questions, feel free to call me, come up to legal, or talk to any member of my staff. We're happy to answer your questions anytime.
Question.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit to group emails or shared documents? Like we all want to edit the same Google document. Where does that fall with quorums and public noticing and such?
So the advent of social media has made this really complicated with the right to know law, because everybody wants to talk in their emails and offline, and can inadvertently create a quorum, meaning now you've created a meeting and it's not a public meeting. So now you're in violation of the right to know law. So there are a couple of strategies you can use there. So for drafts and draft working documents, you can share those. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to end up having a whole email line of discussion about it, right? So you could share the document, but typically what you can do is one person sends it out and everybody else is blind CC, and you say, do not respond. So you don't end up creating a discussion in the email train, okay? So you don't want to be talking as a group about your business in an email. But you can share, say, hey, here's the draft of what we talked about at the meeting for everybody to look at. Don't reply to the email. Just look at it be on the agenda for the next meeting. That's okay.
And so it could be a Google, like everyone could log in and edit the same document.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, can work on the same document. It's really the conversation that is the issue.
Since you bring up social media, if we're having a conversation in, let's say, a larger forum like the unofficial City of Portsmouth Facebook page, which is like a public
Yes, it is.
place, do we need to look and like count the names of, you know, the members in this body who have posted to it, or does the fact that it's public make it acceptable?
The fact that it's public doesn't make it acceptable.
Okay.
But what's key is if you are interacting with one of your committee members sort of directly, not that
Okay.
that multiple people might have independently made some statement, but you don't want to interact and start a discussion about the business committee.
I see. Okay, thank you.
That helps. The other flip side of that in the right to know law is that in the legal department, a good amount of our business are right to know requests that come in from all over the country, and our citizenry requesting information, documents, public documents. And now again, with emails, the public document requests are all city emails and for social media emails and et cetera. So we have to respond to those and collect whatever is considered a public document. So your communications as a public body with each other are considered public documents, subject to production under the right to know law. So I would just be judicious in your text messaging and your social media posts and emails that you have if you're talking about the actual work of this committee.
So we'll provide a link in the minutes to the website where you can find it, as well as Susan's contact information.
Sure, that'd be great.
Question, it's great to see the Public Works staff quality involvement. I was wondering if there would be any participation from the Planning and Sustainability Office, because I think they had a lead role along with Public Works on the plan that we're implementing. And there's a lot in there that's infrastructure, but there's a lot that's planning and policy.
I believe that planning was going to have staff attend periodically. So
good.
Any other questions?
Mentioned I found the handbook. I didn't find anywhere to sign off on reading it.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not sure it was linked properly. So.
Or the email made it seem like maybe we'd have to see a future email that would show us where to sign off.
Yes.
No, and then the other point I think that I saw in the handbook was just around commenting to the city council. Let's say any of us could do that as individuals, but make it clear we're not speaking for the committee. That in general, it would be the chair would speak for the committee. But there's nothing stopping us from advocating for funding for something in the CIP that's related to bike and pedestrian issues, right? As long as it was clear, we're speaking as residents, not as the whole committee.
Right. Exactly. So it does talk about that relationship between a committee member or board member and the city council, and how the communication goes back to the city council. But you're still more than open to come into public comment and present, whatever you want to present in public comment. As you say, you're speaking for your own individual opinions, and not as your position on this committee.
So the only exception to that is, as a committee, there may be specific projects you guys all vote on and say, we want to support this specific project and put it into the CIP as a committee's requested project.
Okay.
And then that's a perfectly appropriate to have the committee, speak as the committee to support that project.
Then you would come in and say, we're here as members of the committee.
Great question.
Questions, it take a minute for you to think it through,
Yeah.
So I say I'm happy to answer any questions as they come to mind.
Yeah, and I can vouch for how supportive the staff are and the legal team, because I'm new to all this too. And they are very supportive and helpful. Okay. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you all, and I might go home.
You are excused. Yeah.
I'm gonna make a note to have the city clerk work on that connection between the handbook and Power BMS. So.
Great. Thank you. All right. I guess we'll go over, the document that I emailed was just kind of a summary of the bike ped plan, because it is thorough and dense. And I heard that, and we should do that. Yep. Good call. So, again, guidance from seasoned city staff say that we should elect a chair before we start doing the things. And that's true.
Can I propose you?
You can. It can be anyone. It really can be.
And he's like,
I
it
will
could
second-
be anyone.
I'll second that. Annie.
Yep,
All right.
motion, second,
Yep, motion,
second discussion.
second, and then we have a discussion.
Can we discuss if anyone else is interested?
Yeah, would anyone else like to propose anybody else?
We have a co-chair, like an assistant chair.
I would suggest having one.
Should we do the chair first?
Sure. Anyone else want to throw their hat in the ring for chair or co-chair? All right, so
I'd like to nominate Matt Glenn for co-chair, assistant chair, whatever the title.
I'll second for the purposes of discussion. I think we should do a chair and a vice chair.
Yeah, vice chair.
All right, so we have a motion to nominate me as chair. We have a motion to nominate Matt Glenn as co-chair or vice chair. Are there any opinions for or against co-chair versus vice chair? Nobody knows.
I would suggest vice chair.
Vice chair? Yeah, okay. So the first motion nominating me as chair, we'll go through and we'll, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Right.
We do that anonymously or no?
That was our first vote, guys. Nice job. Nicely done. Thank you, Susan. See, look, now she's confident we can do anything. And then for the motion to nominate Matt Glenn as vice chair, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Matt, any
All right,
opposed?
thank you.
Great. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Do we nominate? No. Any other positions? No, not really. All right. So I guess we could pull up the goals and, also I'm very open to any which way we want to do this, but I think tonight we would want to come out of this with a shared understanding of what this is and what it isn't. And perhaps a mission statement and a declaration to, council and to other committees of like, this is what we're going to focus on and hope to achieve and work towards. So those would be, and I think a lot of those answers are probably already in the bike ped plan. But hopefully you guys all got the document that I emailed out. Again, it was just a summary of some of the nuts and bolts from in here.
Annie, did that come from you or did that come from someone else?
It didn't come, it was linked to the meeting on the
Oh.
website. I didn't get it.
Yeah, I didn't
I
get it
didn't get it.
either.
Okay, so when I did email you, it only went to staff. I was wondering if anyone else was BCC'd.
Well,
Went to the
I
website.
think that the website under the date and the Zoom link,
Had it.
instead of an agenda, it had, I think, your packet. Yeah.
I clicked the link and read it that way.
Great.
Are those normally also emailed to committee members, and do we are expected to look on the website?
So we try to cover all the bases. So in general, once we have, first there's a meeting notice when you set a date. And that has a Zoom link for, in case you can't make it in person. Then the meeting notice is replaced with an agenda and a meeting packet that includes any materials like this plan. That gets posted to the event on the website that we were just discussing, and it goes through me from your chair, the link to the event and attachments with the meeting packet. And the agenda is posted by itself, but it is always also the first page of the meeting packet. So
Okay.
just when you open the meeting packet and you see the agenda and you say, wait a minute, this isn't the packet, keep going. The next page is other material. Okay. So you'll get an email that is, depending on how you'd like to do it, either I can send it on your behalf or I can provide you with the information, and all of your names, all of your emails will be CC'd on this email to Eric and Peter.
So I think to answer your question, I don't think we don't expect you to check the website. You should get an email with the agenda and the date and the time and the everything that Stephanie just described. Except for today, because I'm new to all this, so figuring it out. Are we meeting, do you have a frequency in mind for how often we're meeting, or? It is what we will set today, yeah. So I guess there's a question. Do we want to set nuts and bolts first of frequency, mission, date and time before we dive into all of this? Or would we like to talk about goals and whatnot beforehand? Yes,
I just have one question about this linkage.
yes.
So I clicked on and I read the 14 and the 24, but it's a sort of a pain to read online. Is there a document in the public library or in the chamber somewhere where I could read it?
As far as, this is what,
Yeah.
yep.
The library has a lot of the plans. I can't honestly swear this one is, but it would surprise me if it isn't. But
Yeah,
I can
okay.
check that and include that information in the minutes.
Would you like-
Where you can read it.
Would you like these?
I've already read it all, but yeah, sure.
I mean, if you want a hard
I'd
copy,
like-
you're
I'd like
welcome.
a copy.
Sure. Yeah. You may leave with these. Okay,
Thank you very much.
we set the nuts and bolts first or discuss our hopes and dreams?
I think if we understand like what our goals are for this, it might give us an idea of how much work that's going to take, and that could drive how often we need to meet.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, okay.
Agreed.
All right.
Twice weekly?
Eric.
So just, the Deliverance Committee has a duration of the council.
Yeah.
So if there are aspirations, unless it gets re-upped or, so it's just one of those things in terms of there are aspirational things that we want to accomplish within a certain time frame. think in terms of like the duration of this committee, and try to achieve that stuff in that time frame.
Yeah.
So,
That's a good point.
And what is that duration?
the
2
length of the council,
So, yeah,
Years.
about.
so it's
26, 27.
26 and 27, so the
18
next
months Left.
28 would be the.
Okay,
the
so there's
next
18
council.
months or so left.
Yeah.
Ish.
Okay. So, pulled, any other discussion? Pulled right from the bike and ped plan. The goals, the 5 goals. Goal number 1, safety for all ages and abilities. Improve the safety and awareness of walking and bicycling for everyone, from young children to older adults. Goal number 2, more trips on foot and by bike. Increase the actual number of walking and bicycling trips made in Portsmouth. Goal 3, high quality year-round facilities. Make Portsmouth known as a city where walking and biking are visible, well supported, and maintained in all seasons. Goal 4, connectivity and equitable access. Connect neighborhoods across Portsmouth, especially to schools, employment, and transit for people of all incomes and abilities. And goal 5, climate and affordability. Reduce greenhouse gas emissions and household transportation costs by enabling more people to walk and bike for daily trips. So those were the 5 goals pretty much outlined in the bike ped plan. And so I guess, and a lot of this has been supported by resident surveys. You know, this plan was built around, actually, you know, how about, I have many people that built this plan, so why don't we talk about how this was built? Vice Chair, perhaps? Or Bill? Let's see.
Yeah,
You know what, I'm gonna step aside and you guys go ahead and describe the work that you have done.
Right, and Annie was
Annie.
there as well. I think the goals are a good place to start, and maybe we can all see if we agree on all of them, but it's not really telling us how the committee works and how we move forward. That's maybe a little further down where you had you know your role, what the committee actually does. Even thinking about priorities, right?
I would say that as a planner, these are very fine goals, and having participated in public meetings, outreach, connectivity from the Sustainability Committee, and I think a lot of the themes are captured really well. I think the goals, you know, I can't really see other than a few tweaks of things. It seems like everything I or others of us that I know threw in is here, and in those 5 goals. I would just hope as we move forward, we not only deal with prioritizing the priorities and the lists and the specific infrastructure in some of the programs, but also think bigger picture. And I think that comes under the heading of particularly the 4th and the 5th goal, the connectivity and links to other important things like the city's climate change plan. So that, I think that's why I'm particularly interested in having planning staff join us as well as Public Works.
Absolutely. And affordability too, I think is gonna be a really poignant angle right now too, because the price of gas, ridiculous. And if, you know, how many more people would bike or walk if we had better, more inviting options?
Or I can walk to transit,
To transit,
which would
yes.
get you further and maybe get you out of town as well.
Yes.
I just want to add that this committee was created specifically with the phrase complete streets policy, said several times during the council meeting. And I don't want that original 2013 policy to be lost. Those key goals are more important, perhaps more achievable, but I hope it's in the light of complete streets policy.
Excellent point. Are we familiar with complete streets? Would you want to give an overview of complete streets for people that it might not be nature to?
Yes, the city has complete streets design guidelines from 2017 and a complete streets policy from 2013, basically indicating that streets should be designed with consideration of all modes as appropriate. And the complete streets policy lays out specific design guidelines for all of the streets in Portsmouth. Every street has a category and design standards associated with it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, I think that it is in bike ped plan, for lack of a better word. Okay. I think, looking at these goals, I heard a lot of I heard a lot of this around the table. We were going around and saying, why are we here? What are we looking to see come out of this committee? So, yeah. Any further discussion, comments, goals?
I just have a question. This is, I didn't get the link, so see the link, so this might be already in there, but just thinking about scope. Or maybe this is a further discussion, but is there like budgetary information? Like, are we looking to do this with no budget? Do we have a budget to make, for signage and all those kinds of things? Or I guess the greater question is, what is sort of the scope of this committee? I think that would help.
Great question.
Understand kind of, yeah.
So I can speak to,
Please do.
this committee has no spending authority, no budget. However, the activities, signage, paving, striping is budgeted through this capital plan as well as city's budgets. So if there's something that the committee feels strongly about, recommends, and it's easy to do. Say somebody comes to an intersection and says, hey, we need to improve the signage here. We need to get some painting on here. We need to do something like that. And it's within our existing budget. It's something, Eric and I can execute quickly. If it's, we need to put buffered bike lanes in this area and it's going to require building median islands, that needs to go through the capital plan. So there's simple things we can do within budget. There are more elaborate things which we may be able to accomplish, but require planning and permitting and other stuff. And then there's larger capital plans. And the master plan identifies a bunch of projects. The CIP has a number of the projects identified, and monies are being programmed. And there's a bunch of work that's going on currently, which was one of the topics later on that we can review some of the projects that have been done or are in kind of the works.
Yeah, and I will just say CIP is capital improvement plan.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should
Yeah,
have said
that's
that.
Bill.
Yeah, and in the bike pedestrian plan, and I have some problems when it says master plan because I think of the new master plan that's being developed. So I don't know if it would be useful to be a little more specific in our nomenclature where we would say bike ped plan or bike
It's
ped
called
master
It's
plan.
called the bike ped network plan.
Yeah, network plan. But picking up on what Peter said, a lot of the recommendations in this are appropriate for capital improvement plan proposals, but other things like perhaps the safe routes to school or a policy proposal very relevant to this plan are really handled or budgeted probably through other mechanisms, operating budget or other things. Partnerships, partnerships would be very important. Let's say a safe routes to school program would involve the school department and additional funds. So in addition to the infrastructure and the capital budget, there are a lot of other things that I hope we can address as well.
And then, yeah, Peter, if you want to speak to what has already been done, all the things that have been.
Well, what is done is probably harder than to say what's kind of in the works.
Sure.
I mean, there's, you're all avid cyclists or pedestrians, you've seen the Porthwick Ave multi-use path, the Hodgson Way path. That's going to connect to a path that's going to go along the North Mill Pond, which will then go to a path that rides past the AC Hotel over to Market Street. So you'll be able to be on a path from Market Street all the way to Massachusetts eventually. Now you can get down to Hampton. So that's separate bike paths. We recently had a developer put in a multi-use path from the old Christmas tree development out to Woodbury Avenue. And the thought on that is we want to build a corridor down Woodbury Avenue. Where actually Market Street, where then it turns into Woodbury Avenue. We want to get a corridor all the way from where the trail comes in behind the AC Hotel to Market Street to be able to go all the way up past Atlantic Heights, all the way up to Gosling Road. So the developer paid for that section. We're working with another developer that's doing a bank at the Demoulas, the Market Basket Plaza. So we're going to do a section in there. We have grants in for applications in for additional stuff along from I-95 to Market Basket. So we're trying to cobble together that whole area. Beverly Hill Road, which is an embarrassment, is a legacy project. Your grandchildren will probably be able to get on it. I shouldn't be so.
Next year, we will be in construction.
Right now we're pushing for next spring to be in construction.
That is the goal.
That'll be pedestrian, there'll be a sidewalk on one side and a multi-use path on the other side. That'll be great.
Cheers from Owen Park.
Yes,
Get there.
we're getting closer. We will.
Yeah, and then the side path along Elwyn Road is coming forward. We have identified Constitution, doing a side path from the new South Gate Plaza down to the rail trail, which is, we have a new park and ride, or not park and ride literally, for it's a TP property, if you're familiar with that, to be able to access the rail trail there. We've got the Borthwick Avenue parking area to access the trail on that side. And we're in the process of trying to develop 2 access trails on the southern end of the city at Haven Park to be able to get to the rail trail. So instead of having to get on Ocean Road down to the trail, you can go the quick trails on either side of Ocean Road, so those neighborhoods can get safely to. And the thought, our goal is connectivity, to be able to provide safe corridors for people to get from these neighborhoods to various other sections of the city. So I think, it's pretty clear in the bike ped master plan that is a big part of the goals, is that connectivity. You have stranded folks like a Wamisit Place or Gosling Meadows that, folks that have need to be able to traverse the city on foot or bicycle. And those are kind of the connected pieces. Am I forgetting any other projects we have currently underway?
I have a list here. The trailheads, you mentioned that.
Downtown, is there anything with Market Square?
It's gonna be Sharrows in the downtown.
Sharrows. Who's shared?
Shared roads.
Are the big arrows with a bike on them in the
Yeah.
street telling the car?
Targeting.
Yep, targeting. Arrows. They're called sharrows because you're supposed to share the road.
And the
I was just thinking the Fleet Street with the one-way
Yep.
section,
Yep.
which we're gonna be presenting.
there's gonna be
There's the opportunity for a contraflow bike lane in there.
Yep.
So we're on Fleet Street between Congress and Hanover.
And Gillies.
Yeah, where Gillies is right now. And this proposal is to make the Fleet Street one way from Congress to Hanover. But then there's also room there to provide a contraflow bike lane going from Hanover to Congress. And that, we're designing the signal at Fleet and Congress to accommodate that. But, it's be a great thing for this committee to weigh in on. Is that something you'd like to see happen? Because we have not, we still need to present to the city council.
we have to go to city council, I think
Just got pulled out. I pulled it out of the minutes.
Right.
And we're gonna present on it.
schedule a date.
Schedule the presentation for that.
That CIP or proposed for the next.
No, it's in the CIP, but it's the next phase of that, where Congress is getting done. We have enabling work that goes down Hanover to Maplewood to the North Mill Pond for new drainage. So there's gonna be a bunch of work on there. That's utility driven work, but the Fleet Street is the next phase after that. So that'll probably be 2 years out, maybe a year.
Yeah, it was gonna happen soon. It's good. That's what Dave was saying.
Yeah. So
To get a decision on this.
Yep. And this, I will say, this is the benefit of having these two on this committee because a lot of this stuff isn't going to necessarily be just driven from the bike and ped plan. It will be driven like, oh, hey, we have to, tear up all the streets to separate sewer and water. When we put them back together, what if, right? And that's where maybe we can have influence onto, where things are prioritized and how things happen that way. Because, we don't have a budget or funding or anything like that. And so tagging along to public works and engineering and planning projects to say, hey, remember the bikers and walkers, is pretty much what we're, okay, we have.
From my reading of the documents,
Yes.
it's seemed to be the case that when there is a sewer project or whatever, it's incumbent upon I don't know if it's the planning department or some other folks to take into account the walking or biking considerations as an intimate part of the larger project. Is that right or wrong?
That's our interpretation of it, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So for example, we have to repave Maplewood Ave, Middle Street. We are going to do minor adjustments at this time. Maintain the bike pedestrian accommodations as they are now, but there are opportunities that deserve consideration as we move forward in the future, which can't, the budget doesn't include that right now. It's the budget for paving costs went up 30%. So we had to cut back on a number of things, but the budget in this, it maintain the road. If we wait too long, that road's going to blow up and it's going to cost a lot more money. So road pavement, if you catch it early, it's not as expensive as if you wait until it starts to really fall apart. So we're moving forward with repaving Middle Street with the intent of having the ability to make other modifications. We're not assuming what you all want to do at this point. So that we're going to do minor adjustments at where is that? You forgot the intersection with the flashing beacons. Richards Ave. And where we have a flashing beacon there that keeps getting hit and we keep hitting the side of the building. We're gonna adjust the radius there to pull the beacon away, and we're gonna move the beacon on the other side because it's blocking, there's a utility pole that blocks it. So we're gonna get that more visible. So those minor adjustments is that, because we know that area doesn't allow for the width of the roadway, doesn't allow for buffer bike lanes and other things like that. So we're not precluding anything in the future there. There is a challenge with a property at Union and Middle that snow is piling up on her doorway and she's concerned about that. So we're adjusting the curb line there, and because the grade of the road, we're going to step the curb down and have a step down similar to what the coffee shop at Killam's is set up, so but in the reverse direction, where you have a grade break and you make it up in curbing. So we're not planning on doing anything else. There is we would like to look at putting a sidewalk past the Sunoco gas station to connect to Lafayette Park. There's a section of roadway that doesn't have a sidewalk. There's a really wide section of roadway that could have some modifications either at some point. And those are opportunities that, I'm sure you all probably want to look at. But so that's an example of, yes, we consider when we do it, but it doesn't mean we execute and do everything that's called for, because we either don't have the money or we don't have, the time or things like that.
I'll jump in and say all that information is amazing to have, and I think this is a really valuable purpose of this committee, that it's recorded and people can hear what the city is doing, because you are working on a lot of projects. I think, we had a 2014 plan, and then 11 years later, a new plan. We had one update in between. So one part of the committee's role will be making sure that biennial report happens, that every 2 years there's an update on progress. I think it's also in the Complete Streets policy to have regular reporting on progress. So this committee can serve that purpose very well. I also think, it's useful for us to, if it's a project like Beverly Hill Road that's taking 10 years to happen, it's useful for committee members to go to those meetings that are public meetings, and be involved. But what we have more ability to do in the time frame of a year and a half until this council term is over is the small things like a repaving project and just adjusting the striping. So it's great to hear. I was going to ask about Middle Street. And I think that we obviously a huge part of it is parking. And so that's another conversation this committee needs to have is our relationship with the Parking and Traffic Safety Committee. If there's a willingness to lose a dozen parking spots on one side of Middle Street, all of a sudden you have a bike lane on one side and maybe you have sharrows still on the other side, but maybe even a buffer to keep them out of the door zone. We're talking about parking that is not generating any income for the city, and it's not part of the parking pilot either. So I think there is time to have those conversations, and it wouldn't be moving curbing. From a cost standpoint, I don't see how something like that couldn't be looked at. And every time there's a repaving, I wonder. I imagine you two are having conversations about the bike bed plan and thinking about opportunities. But Court Street was repaved a few years ago. The plan said turn it into a bike boulevard, but there was nothing. The two-way part of State Street was repaved, and it was meant to be a bike boulevard. There was a lot of discussion around brick sidewalks versus concrete sidewalks, but I don't think we weren't aware of any discussion around the bike boulevard and traffic calming proposals that had been in the earlier plan. So I wonder. I wanted to bring up working groups. If we are allowed to have up to 6 members work together, even if 3 or 4 members work together on certain things. I had ideas like Safe Routes to School as a working group, the Complete Streets Design Guideline. I know there's discussion around that. Transit and looking at transit stops and pedestrian connections to them. And I don't know if this is a working group thing, but just getting that list of what's being paved in 2026 and 2027 so that we could start conversations about striping. Let me see.
So just to speak to the Middle Street.
Sure.
We consciously, we know the Middle Street was probably our biggest, I call it an episode versus a program. And I would say it's an example of something that was not well received by everybody. There was definitely folks that felt it was great. But the challenge as a result of that is it delayed a lot of really positive projects that we wanted to work on. And it's took a lot of effort and energy. So when we do a paving project like Middle Street, we acknowledge that there's a balance. If we waited for consensus on a design, that road would require a significant investment, a lot more money to maintain. So we made the decision that needs to get paved now. That does not preclude the decision and discussion to make pavement changes, painting changes, build islands, move things around, eliminate parking. But that is a public process that's a lot more in depth. So in order to save the pavement and save the road and save the city money, we need, and we're going to be doing this in the next couple of weeks. We're moving forward. It's part of this year's paving plan. So that, happy to have discussions about what we want to do after the fact, but we can't hold up to have a long discussion about what we're going to do this year on that road. Other roads, and I wish I had the opportunity. I wish I had the list of all the projects we were doing. State Street we just did. We're going to put sharrows down State Street.
Same as it's been.
Congress got done. We're going to top coat.
Congress, the sidewalks will be widened at the end.
The sidewalks will widen on
there.
Congress, and that was a public process.
Yeah. Right. Great.
So
Could you share with this committee what your striping plan is for Middle Street?
It's essentially what's there now, except for
Miller and Middle are going to get improved, right? That's the
well, Miller was striped as part of the signal that went in recently, and it'll just be restriped. better on fresh pavement out there. But the bike lane as it's striped now, the length of Middle Street will stay the same. What we're doing is, I don't know if you've noticed when you drive down Middle Street, the buffer area goes in and out.
Noticed.
Yeah, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna keep the bike lane a consistent width, the buffer a consistent width, and the travel lane will be what varies in and out.
So can we see that?
It's on a sketch. I can share it with you, sure.
That'd be
It may be
great.
hard for anyone. It's just my notes and to the contractor to see, so.
So the contractor's working off a rough sketch.
Yes, yeah, we work with them in laying it out as after they pave it. So,
But in terms of like long-term, like, creating buffer bike lanes, eliminating parking, those types of things, it's a public process, and based on our past experience, it's gonna take a little while to get consensus.
Or I guess anything about.
In this example, is there, when you do the paving, are there small adjustment, like you mentioned, the curb, or would there be a list of those small things that can be done with paving so we know what we can suggest? Does that make sense? Because otherwise we'll say, oh, we would like to see a bike lane here, and then you'll be like, well, we're just paving, this is part of a public process.
Well, in this case, there are bike lanes in existence there. So the thought was, it would be, in my mind, the next thing on Middle Street is really, do we create, physical buffered bike lanes? So you go to a lot of places and they have curb line, separate curbs,
Protect.
raised islands,
Right.
so it's really a protected bike lane.
Right.
And to me, that's the type of thing. At this point, I feel like there's 2 existing bike lanes and there's not a lot of.
But, okay, I'll give you an example. For example, if we were talking about parking for site, as a bicycle coming from the library on Richards and across Middle to go to Austin.
Yep.
If there were not cars parked that close on my looking left,
Yep.
I might be able to see better, right?
Sure.
Now, with repaving, you cannot remove a parking spot, right? You have to go through
Parking traffic.
a whole process, right? So I'm just wondering if you could give us, and maybe I'm not explaining myself right, but when you are paving a road, what are the other little actions that can be done that could improve the life of a bicycle or a pedestrian?
What's the menu of options we could
Right,
use?
do we have any
We have a menu of
options?
options to choose from so that we don't have
Because
to
we really,
say
like-
no 100 times.
In 2 years, we're not going to redo the bike infrastructure. But if you're repaving Court Street, maybe we can suggest you a parking spot there because, or I don't know.
So maybe like an on-site kind of visit to some of those areas that you're talking about. Just to actually see, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I think that's a reasonable request or something to consider because I think what I'm hearing in all of this is how can we get our hands on and get like tangible things of like what we can do. I feel like I am a visual person. Maps are all great, and tangible things like what's realistic, because again, this, for the public and myself, because I've only been doing this for 6 months, it's, the scope of things versus, what's capital, what's this, what's that, can get kind of muddled. And maybe, I think what I'm hearing is just for a clearer, like, here's what we can or can't do. And there is a little bit of that in the plan, and, I'll just read out generally the role, what the committee actually does. Advocate for the plan's implementation within city processes, including capital budget discussions and development reviews. Advise city staff and city council on bicycle and pedestrian priorities and emerging issues. Champion programs, events, and community engagement that build a culture of walking and biking. Review the plan's progress and provide input on the required biennial status report, and help identify and pursue funding opportunities. And so the non-infrastructure work is called the 5 E's: education, encouragement, enforcement, engineering, and evaluation. So while we are going to be able to, we have direct contact with city staff and whatnot, I don't know that we will have a nitty-gritty seat at all of the planning. Like, I don't think it's fair to ask, Peter and Eric to review all of their plans and all of their work so that we can cycle it through our own personal lenses. And I think that's a high cost of time, and I don't know. And it's interesting because we're all passionate about it, and I love learning about all this stuff. Oh, wow, that's so cool. I never knew I would be so interested in parking, and here I am. And at parking, traffic, and safety. And I think, keeping our scope and at least maybe for the rest of this meeting here too, on kind of the broader strokes, and not to say that we can't have, side conversations of like, this would be helpful for me to understand this better, because that's important too. These are big, different concepts, and we're thinking in different ways. And a lot of you are new to our committee. I am also new to our committee, so I include myself in that group. So, because those are my questions too, newly coming to city council. What can I do? What is this? What is my scope? What am I doing here? I ask every day, but does that, yeah, please.
I mean, we can, Eric, you have the bicycle guideline, was MUTCD, you recommended treatments and the number of handbooks they have.
There's a lot of federal guidelines and recommendations.
Yeah, there's a bunch of, we could probably provide point you to different resources that have different treatments. Things like sight distance and stuff like that, those are things that can be, if you identify a street that you have sight distance issue, if you're saying Richardson and that's a sight distance issue, we bring that to Park and Traffic Safety. Eric can review it to check speeds, check, that is, and in that case, you have a rapid flashing beacon that is a location that allows you to actually, if you're feeling uncomfortable, you can actually get off your bike, hit the button, wait, and then go across the crosswalk there. But those types of tools, I think we could, point you and get some resources listed to say where you can see those things. Some of you, I know, you've looked at those things before, but the pavement falls into a couple categories. Maintenance pavement, which is, they go and they mill the top off and they repave it. That's to extend the life. You catch that before the pavement degrades to the point where you have to reclaim it, which is grind the whole thing up,
Okay.
which you have to then go take material out, shape it, and completely rebuild. So the key is we first try to do crack sealing, which, if when pavement separates, water gets down underneath, it can get into the base and then cause frost heaving and really accelerate the deterioration of pavement. That's our first, kind of attack. Then what we're doing in the Lincoln neighborhood is we're gonna be doing microsurfacing, which is it's almost like a seal coat, just with a little bit more oomph to it. And that's about a quarter of the cost of milling and paving. And then the next step is, if it really is bad, we have to reclaim it and pave it. So when we're doing these small mill and pave or seal coating,
Yeah.
the types of things we can do are paint, look at the parking, those types of things. When we are reclaiming and completely grinding a road up, reshaping it, there's an opportunity to narrow the roadway. If it's a 36-foot wide roadway, when it should be a 20-foot wide roadway, the Tucker's Cove, landing strips, why pave that much? Why pay for more pavement if we can reduce the size?
But even that takes public meetings. It's not something that you can decide. I mean, I see on our street, Bartlett Street, we had, for 2 years, we had meetings, and then eventually, so.
Yes, you experienced it with me.
I know, no doubt.
We were both there.
No, we couldn't have our roundabout.
Yes, Bill and then Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, as much as this level of detail is interesting, it's the world I come from, I would hope we could go up one level and really use the plan as a point of departure, because there's an awful lot of detail once we get down into very specific projects. And I think very key for this committee, considering it's 18 months, we haven't decided how often we're going to meet, that's going to be really important, is prioritizing. And it may be that if there's a really significant project like the counterflow and that we could get a more detailed background or briefing from Peter and Eric and think it through as a committee and see if there's a position we want to take as a committee to recommend it. I would rather be doing that than really getting into the really specifics of intersections, which I think is covered by traffic and parking. And I'd like to endorse Matt's suggestions about the subcommittees. I think your suggestions of the safe routes to school, the public transit, which I would say is public transit, walking, biking, connectivity, first mile, last mile. I think those are two good ones, and you had another couple of those. I think those will be very important for the working of this committee, but I think pretty soon, before we run out of time tonight, we've got to give a hard thought to how often we want to meet, because it's only quarterly, we're not going to get anything done.
Patrick?
Yeah, I wanted to apologize to you and to Bill because I wanted to make one nitty-gritty
I know.
suggestion here.
It's so
And
interesting.
I only say this because Peter is saying that we have a paving project on Middle coming up. And at the corner of Middle and Miller, there's that light situation has been greatly improved. I'll be the first to say that. I walk that every day, many times. But if you push the button to go across on Middle at that Miller junction, you're going to get run over if you don't step back about 3 feet. And this has been true for years. Cars make that right turn and take off your toes. So I have to step back literally 3 feet every time I punch the button. And I realize that's probably a constraint that goes too far. That's a constraint that requires much more work than the little improvements that you're talking about. But that's a legitimate safety issue.
Sure. And I think in a situation like that, we have cameras at that intersection now. We collect we can collect the video information. My concern at this point is I don't feel like that intersection is well defined, even with the new paint, because it's just so broken up. And I'm interested to see once the new pavement's down and the new striping's down, whether it's improved. People ignore the no turn on red at that. They just come whipping around. So, we are aware of that. There are, that was a lot of discussion, that intersection configuration. It was a series of meetings with Parking, Traffic and Safety. So it's got a lot of scrutiny and a lot of input.
Sorry for the
That's okay.
break.
No, it's hard to go big picture whenever we, see things that we live and do every day. Tyler?
I wanted to support Matt on the working group thing. I think that might take care of a lot of our nitty gritty and we can focus on the two key items of what the committee actually does.
Yes.
That might be our top level goals.
Yes. I think, yep. So if we're in the document I sent, I pulled directly from the bike ped plan, suggested 1 to 2 year priorities. And what the pulled out are things that are high priority and low cost, important and cheap or easy. And one of them, I'll read through them again, kind of for Zoom's sake as well. High priority, establish the committee's formal structure, meeting cadence and relationship with the planning department, and I'll say DPW staff as well. Review the plan and develop a short list of 2 to 3 infrastructure projects to champion in the CIP capital improvement plan process. Develop or update a printed and online biking and walking map for Portsmouth. Promote safe routes to school program and connect with the school department on programming. Launch adult bike safety education partnership with Sabre. Advocate for plan use in all development review, flag opportunities when projects go before the planning board. Those were the high priorities. There's a couple of medium ones as well, but I think let's shift into the first high priority of establishing our structure, our cadence, and some subgroups. I think would be a really good, important takeaway from tonight. So as far as day, Wednesday doesn't work for one of our members. It's a hard no. Wednesday evenings are a hard no. So I think we should look to shift that. do we have consensus? Is this a good time-ish, evening 6 to 8? For most folks, I'm seeing yeses. And then we would have to look at when the room is available. I don't know if this is in use other evenings.
Yeah.
Many, right?
It's, I can look long-term and see if there's another, I can tell you when another committee has, I mean, for example, the Energy Advisory Committee meets in this room the first Wednesday. So Wednesday is, that's irrelevant to you.
Sustainability is the fourth Thursday.
Housing is what, the second or third? I need to
Yeah,
look
okay.
at the whole thing.
Okay.
And I will do that for you.
Okay.
So you've got what doesn't work, although that's this room. There are other rooms.
Yes.
The school committee boardroom can be used if needed.
Okay.
There's some other options.
Okay.
So let me do that for you, because
Okay.
it is really, I mean, there are what, 60 committees? So trying to
You
fill
don't have
in
to
the
memorize.
puzzle, yeah.
Yeah, so there is that puzzle piece as well.
It's
But
other
if-
buildings too, right? Like community campus or senior center or something like that.
Library.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's
I
hard
thought
to
we
ride
lived
a
here.
bike to the community campus.
It is.
Like, that's true.
It is.
Or walk.
On Darrow School.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think maybe if anyone else has a hard no for an evening during the week, let Stephanie know.
Or if you know right now that you
Or-
can't do, I mean, I will also say that council is the second and fourth usually, sometimes it's the first and third, it's Mondays.
Tuesdays are really hard for me, but I know that among all of us, there might not be one night that works, so
Thursdays are great for me, so if that can be a starting point.
Not the fourth Thursday.
Not the fourth Thursday. Bill and I are in Sustainability Committee.
So it might be Thursday,
Yeah, the third or the second or something.
try to,
But okay, I mean.
a math.
Yep, if you have some options, and then if anyone again has a hard no. Like, Freddie has I will never make it here on a Wednesday. And cadence, we can do monthly, we can do bi-monthly, we can do quarterly.
I think meeting next month would be smart, since we're just getting off the ground.
Yep.
I think initially monthly would make sense. Maybe we could spread that out later, but to get the ball rolling, probably monthly makes sense.
And I think that right now it makes sense because believe it or not, capital improvement plan is starting.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, yeah, we got the budget, great. Let's start the process again. So it's a good opportunity to reflect what's in the current plan and then, so as a committee, think about what projects you want to push for.
What's the most recent version of the CIP? Because I remember a vote December 8th and I haven't really seen an update.
Yesterday,
Since December 8th.
Yesterday? What day did we
It
pass
felt
the
like
budget?
yesterday, Monday.
Monday.
Is it posted?
Yeah, it's on the city's, it's in the budget book.
For
back end.
finance.
It's in the,
And there's
it's
specific.
in the
CIP.
planning departments, planning and sustainability departments, if you go to their website or their page and then look at plans and reports.
Or if you just go to search and look for capital improvement plan or even CIP.
So I
Get
can see
to
what
it
happened
first.
to the expand public transit item.
That was included
Parking.
in parking. There was $150,000 there. We took $100,000 off and left the 50,000 for the microtransit, the transportation planning portion. So that's still there.
Good.
Okay, so we're gonna say monthly. 6 to 8 PM on a day to be determined when Stephanie solves the puzzle. Okay. And what? I don't know, do we get a mission statement? I mean, I feel like we pull it right from the bike and ped plan. I feel strongly about brainstorming a mission statement when we probably have it written down in the bike and ped plan somewhere.
I think between the description that I think you read of the role of the committee and the goals in the plan, I think those are so comprehensive and inclusive that
Great.
I would favor not reinventing those.
Agreed. Anyone feeling need to invent?
Yeah, that section on your role, what the committee does. If that's not too long, that seems to work.
Oh, I don't think so. And again, the document is just pulled from the plan. I made none of this. It's all plagiarized from the good work that has already been done. Okay,
May I?
yes.
Public comments. Do we want these? And if so, can we limit them to 3 minutes?
I think you have to have public comment
Yeah.
by state
Okay.
requirements. I think you're wise to try to limit it to 3 minutes, or at least,
Try.
try.
I think like we do in parking, like 15 minutes as the total.
Total,
Right,
yeah.
right.
As the total.
Yeah.
But what if it gets, I mean, I remember some meeting over minutes.
Mhm.
What are you can't just say, okay, now we're done.
I feel like I could.
You can, it may not be wise. You may piss a lot of people off. If we have that amount of comments, I would say this committee's a success.
Yeah.
Oh, everybody will be.
Yeah. I think public comment limiting to 15 minutes and, it's, or at least the approach I take at parking traffic. If there's 3 people, like talk, if there's lectures, I will bang my gavel.
Can I add something about public comment? It's hard as a member of the public to comment before the presentation's been given. So that's one annoyance at PTS. You don't always know what's being proposed before you're asked to comment on it. So if we can at least consider reopening public comment later in the meeting after a presentation, if we know it's something people are interested in.
Any of the committees have comment.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you also want it before the vote, if there is a vote on something. And then my other thought was, it's easy with the city council to go to the forum and know that when you click submit and do the capture that, your comments have gone to everybody. And usually the clerk posts them for everybody to read. With PTS, they go to Eric's email. And then I guess you forward to committee members. So would that be the same with this? For any email comment?
I would encourage everybody to have correspondence to the chair at this point, and she can disseminate it.
Okay, would they also be published as record or?
No. I can, I
I
mean,
mean, I guess if they get put into the meeting agenda items, it would then get, through that process,
yeah,
get incorporated into a public record.
So meeting packet,
Yep.
if you want to summarize, like the way council is, just put them all in there.
we can do that. Yep.
Can we actually get the lump of emails like council does?
No, it would, I think, come just to me and then I would send it out and say, don't reply.
Oh, no, I mean, in our packet, can
Oh,
we have
yeah.
all the whole lump of emails just so that the whole world knows what we're up to?
Yep. And there is on that city council contact form at the bottom, you click whether you want it to be included in public comment or not. So some people say no to that and those just stay in the digital world, but people who want them published, they click yes and those get published. Yeah, okay. So we have that public comment. I guess the other way that we get around it is there's public discussion after a presentation. Sometimes, or committee discuss, I don't know.
It is recorded. It is recorded too.
Yes. I think the should we run into the public comment deluge and have issues with it? We can always I can always accept a motion to suspend the rules and do something wild and crazy, like invite someone back up for public comment. That's always an option too. So we don't have to necessarily set it in stone right now, not knowing where anything happens. So that's always an option. We will silence nobody. Who wants to come talk about?
People are pretty passionate about
Yes, yes,
crosswalks and stuff. So,
yes. Oh,
Are they real?
you're talking.
Right?
Heard?
yeah, so
It doesn't become a public hearing versus like.
It's not true. Okay. Are we feeling good about that? Did I cover all the bases of establishing structure, meeting cadence? Yes.
So did you select a day?
No, we're waiting for Stephanie to,
When all the other committees.
when it is.
Do you wanna do a, what is it, a doodle poll or dupe? What do you call it?
We gotta do the poll.
Once I have what days are available, then we could do a poll, a doodle poll.
Great.
Just so we get everybody's feedback in one place.
Great, okay,
The counselors and Jason.
good, because I'm not good at that. Bill,
Can we say more about the subgroups? So possibly getting
Thank you.
them started. I assume it has to be less than 7 people.
has to be less than
And
7.
it also has to have an expression of interest. You know, time is limited. You know,
Correct.
what the topics are. Can we start with that? What would
Correct.
be useful topics?
I'll pass. Matt, will you propose again and?
Yeah, well, there's the idea of, well, maybe the whole committee wants to know what streets are up for paving in the 2 years ahead. But bike parking was a possible subcommittee, thinking about where there's bike parking, where it's needed. Transit stops or transit connectivity.
Broaden that to walking, biking connectivity to transit, not limited to stops.
Yeah, that's what I mean,
Included,
right?
but not limited. to
Walking and biking, connections to transit. And then schools, safe routes to school being another suggestion. And then I know that there was a couple of days ago, discussion of the Complete Streets guidelines, Eric, and so I'm not sure how we interface with that since Complete Streets is part of our mission.
I don't know if this would be more of a general education subgroup, but in addition to schools, adult education was, I think, mentioned in the goals. I know that's adding more and more subgroups, but I don't know if some of them can be consolidated to maybe one is just education or.
I think throw any groups out there and we can, workshop and, like you said, combine and whatnot.
Maybe schools and the schools group can also consider.
Right,
Adult
yeah,
education.
adult or parent education.
Councilor Hawkins, can you do a public Word doc that works through these subgroups a little bit more so that everybody can see it? I think we established that's legal.
It won't be a public one, but it won't be,
One that everybody can see, but only you can edit.
for public, like general facing
For-
public
for
or
us.
committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys, you can all edit it too. So Susan, because this came up with sustainability committee.
We've got 10.
Yeah. We can all share access and edit a Google form.
10 topics.
10 topics, 10 working groups.
With a lead and.
We just can't all communicate
In discussion.
in a discussion. So yes,
Yeah, she gave us more leeway. Okay.
yeah, we can all edit, because I mean, I guess don't all 14 of us edit at once.
But helpful in a Google
we
Doc.
can't think about it all at
to
once.
to suggest comments instead of changing the whole
Mm.
document. If you put in your comment, then everybody can see that comment and accept or reject it. Instead of actually editing. I mean, paragraph says we should have blue signs and somebody else changes that to say we'll have red signs. Not everybody agrees, you do a tug of war. If you make the comment, this color should be blue, then people,
Excellent point. Yep.
and that keeps the it keeps the starter document intact, and then the subgroups or the whole committee can decide what the final word is. But you're all looking at what the changes, the individual changes are all at once.
So we would be starting with this list of 5 to see if folks think those are the right 5, or comments about whether they should be consolidated, dropped a 6th, and then maybe some other comments added, like potential scope and maybe relevant linkages to other things.
Yes, and I think we can either, just raise our hands and sign up for things now, or we could take a minute to think about it and sign up through that document too. Self-select into what groups you find the most interesting.
Why don't we start with that as a first cut?
Sounds good.
Let it evolve.
The paving list is posted on the website, Annie. So,
Does it, I'll talk to you.
okay.
I'll write this.
Parking traffic. Where on the website?
It's on the DPW projects.
I think the subgroup would be getting into what are the details of
yeah,
the project.
I
I know that the
So
subcontractors
it's
that is going.
really hard in terms of paving projects to get it. Oftentimes, these maintenance paving projects are not designed. So you're not gonna have drawings to look at. It is, you got a pothole here that needs to be broken, cut out and fixed. You got a section that needs to be leveled, and it's done in the field by staff as you go along. You know the general area that you're gonna pave, it's this point to this point, and that's it. It's not a design.
Oh, sure, but this committee is interested in the details that are
Yeah,
bike and pedestrian.
Because I don't know, that's great.
Sure. But I thought you first needed to know where the projects were. So if you know where the project is, you can go out and look at it and say, well, we would like this on that project, on that
Well,
section of road.
Well, I can't talk about it anymore. It's to be in the subcommittee, but
Yeah.
well,
So I'm sorry, you're gonna create a subcommittee to talk about what paving projects are gonna get done?
Would we like to?
we need to understand,
Yeah.
I personally need to understand paving, and maybe that doesn't need to be done within a subcommittee. I can go home and figure it out on my own, but are there opportunity when you have a new paving project? Are there opportunity for us to say, hey, have you thought about this? Or ding, 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 stop, can we talk? And
I think that would start with when we generate the list of projects, we get that to you all.
Okay.
And they've been on the website for a while. So now that the committee exists, we can say, okay, here's the list. But yeah, I mean, if it's easy to accomplish, we'll do it.
Yeah.
You know?
It seems like what's
But
relevant.
easy, but what you
easy
think,
means-
what you think is easy, me,
No,
what
no.
I think is easy.
that's,
A 15-foot lane,
Yeah,
it could be
yeah.
11.
And we don't know what the part is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, there are basic guidelines we have to follow, and I know Complete Streets is up for discussion. So that's another committee, so it's a working group.
A working group, yeah, and I think that, we do have to be restrained by our role. We are an advisory committee, so we can advise and we can be told no. And that's frustrating and true. So, we're not here to make their jobs harder as they pave streets.
It's advocacy, it's advocating for your community.
Absolutely.
I don't take issue with it.
and then we can relay the information, to the
Yes.
other people who live on our street
Absolutely.
and are pissed because the bump wasn't high enough for.
Or we're not maintaining the grass next to the bump.
Okay, yeah, see,
I'm really upset about that. Grass is growing now. It is, I'm
Sorry.
listening. What are you gonna do about it?
I think I'm repeating myself, but I think the opportunity is to find the opportunities for walking and biking with impact and not getting bogged down in your nitty gritty work.
Minutia.
I don't want to use that word, but your nitty gritty work program that you've got so much going on. Where are the opportunities? And I would say a discussion that we've had on Middle Street is good. The counterflow on Fleet Street is good, but we'll have to pick our spots. Really, where is the opportunity for this committee to have an impact on meeting the goals, and the key cross reference is the plan, because the plan is very good.
Agreed, Bill. Yes.
Is there one question, if I might, about the adult education? When you say that, do you mean getting to the senior center, for example, or do you mean outreach and educating the public?
It was, you were
right?
mentioning it though.
That's what I'm not, well, one of the bullets was
Launch
maybe
adult-
partnering with Sabre for some adult education. I think both would be amazing, you know, what scope we have is, I'm not sure, but I do think is outreach to the greater community is hugely important in this education about what do these signs mean, what do the sharrows mean, is a hugely important part of this. There are a lot of people who we don't have to get into attitudes about cycling, but or pedestrians, but there are a lot of people, I think, who are not anti this idea, but don't know.
Yeah, and I think to expand on that too, I feel like that is, you know, we've gotten into the infrastructure side of it, but we can build an infrastructure and no one can use it because we haven't changed the culture around biking and walking. We haven't become less car centric and more multimodal. So I think adult safety education, but also workshops on, you know, again, tagging along with what Sabre is doing, what SPIF is doing, which is Seacoast Pedal It Forward, where they rehab bikes and donate them back to the community, which is, I think, like a subset of Sabre. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But I almost get more excited about that kind of stuff, about engaging with the community, because that's something that the DPW isn't going to do. They're not going to have a bike fair about how you can safely strap your kid to your bike and make it down the street, right? That is something where I would see maybe more of an active role here and engaging community and trying to change culture around all of this. So I think adult education can be what we make of it, but I think education and community outreach in that realm. And then also whenever there are big projects, I see us being the bridge of, you know, between the public and public works, because I didn't live here during the Middle Street, you know, whatever, but I hear it didn't go well. And there may have been improvements in communication to be had or something, and, you know, along those lines. So again, like I think Annie said, you know, we could take this stuff back to our neighbors and back to our communities and educate the public and yeah, be the PR for all this kind of stuff. Bill.
Just quickly, I think it can really be a two-way street as well, because there could be the listening at the senior center or the listening for a workshop as well. And then
That's a great idea.
not only is it influencing culture and behavior, because it really is behavior we're talking about, it's building support for some of these things, because particularly the projects that have a price tag in this current budgetary environment, it's not going to happen unless there is broadly based public support, and that could be a contribution of this committee as well. So it's not just going out one way. I mean, Sabre can do a great job at skills and imparting basic information, but getting interest going is also critical.
And I think we would, oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Oh,
Go ahead.
yeah, I'm just trying to narrow it down a little. I wasn't trying to propose 5 working groups right off the bat. What I think might be simpler, I believe there's interest in safe routes to school education and community outreach, kind of all as one thing. A group that thinks about those things, reads what's in the plan, comes back and reports. Am I right? There's some interest in that. I think there's interest in transit. Is it more than just Bill? Interest in transit and
Walking, biking connectivity to transit as part of the multimodal goal.
which I've heard of, you know, transit audits where you ride a transit line, but you also see what it's like walking the top, things like that. Are there others interested in working on that problem? Maybe.
I mean, Bill, we have a study, we have monies to do that study. You know, is it worth keeping your powder dry and just being, you know, plugging in at that time?
I'd say, depending on the timing, plugging in and making sure there's a strong bike pedestrian
Yeah.
component of that. Yeah, but that may be more like collaboration You know, because maybe some things this committee does involves partners. So there would be an involvement or linkages, like Annie and I are on the sustainability committee. Some other folks are on the parking and traffic. I think this committee will be more effective if it doesn't operate in isolation.
Absolutely.
So maybe we should wait on the transit.
I think we could get
Discussion a little bit.
started to
Okay.
shape it.
There are others that wanna work with that. And then the third idea, to just narrow it down to three, maybe it's not bike parking. I'm okay with discussing that later, but
I'm sorry,
Is it-
bike parking?
bike parking. You know, how to have a formal process to suggest, you know, there needs to be more bike parking at the outdoor pool, for example, things like that. I'm open to the committee's, you know, feel on whether that should be a working group right now or not. But it seems like there's definitely interest in learning about paving and small, low-cost improvements to actual roads. And so I feel like a couple people that had the opportunity to meet with either Peter or Eric and learn what's happening and then report back to the committee on what they recommend. I think that would be really valuable.
Agreed. Yeah, so those three buckets were kind of community-based, school. Did you add complete streets in that one?
You know,
Nope. Transit,
Connectivity.
connectivity, pavement,
pavement and low-cost
and low,
wins.
and then. Yeah, that leaves where do we want complete streets to live somewhere?
I think I'm waiting to hear from PTS on what, or
But at
What was the
PTS, what we
suggestion?
suggested was, you know, the committee would decide how they wanted to deal with it. So we're gonna be reviewing the complete streets, and the reason guidelines, because the reason there are a couple of streets, maybe a handful of them, that we believe are not, you know, they fall into low volume traffic, and so they look neighborhood low volume areas, but they have connection to either schools or other critical things that don't necessarily support the idea that would narrow it down as much as some folks would like. So we want to, you know, and it'd be a great opportunity. So what we're planning on doing is identifying those and then having a discussion. And, you know, as we can either take a first cut at it, bring it to the committee, and say, here's what we're doing, or here's what we're suggesting, because we're gonna go to PTS as well. And then the input at that time, or you all can just go through and say, hey, we think, you know, the complete streets guidelines need to be adjusted anyway, but they all need to be, they're way too wide, they all need to be narrower, and, you know, everything should be good.
The recommendation from Erica was that everything should be reviewed, not just the slow streets, which was the target of the agenda item. So
That's fine. You know,
I'd advocate for this committee being the potentially have a working group to look at. Well, does everything need to be more narrow?
so you can do
It's
that,
new
you
wire.
can do that separate from what Eric and I are gonna be doing. And then, you know, we can compare notes. The intent wasn't to narrow it just to the slow streets. It was to look at the whole document. So,
As the agenda item.
Who created the complete streets design guidelines?
Juliet Walker, Eric was involved, right?
I was on it, fire department and,
Did you hire a planning team or was it?
yeah, there was
Was it
also a
in-house?
consultant who put the document together for us and worked with us to put it together.
And the majority of it's fine. You know, it's really just a couple of stray ones that, you know, it's really, for whatever reason, just didn't really get thoroughly thought through. Right.
The ones that are being targeted for change, I think were made with intention, purpose. And it would be nice to have this be an involved discussion rather than a staff report back.
Sure.
Yeah, so we'll get a working group here. So
Is the request from the working group and the committee to have DPW staff available to participate in that? Because I can't, you know,
the working group here. Or
yeah, I mean, it's,
for,
so staff availability isn't infinite. Eric's, you know.
Very much no.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of like, we need to be targeted in terms of what we're able to support and how.
Yes.
So
Uh,
the expectation is that Eric will participate in that.
have that expectation.
No, I'm just asking for clarification.
So in the complete, you're asking for clarification, who, if we have the expectation of staff participating in the Complete Streets working group through Bike Ped?
Yeah, I mean, if you were thinking, yeah, you guys just do it yourselves and then
Yeah.
present it, and then Eric can review what you presented, that's fine. I mean, I can't speak for Eric right now. He may have the time to sit down with you and go through it. But the point is, if we weren't envisioning it being, we were envisioning Eric doing it at his time when he has time to do it, not take a formal time that kind of dictates his day versus, you know, flexible, you know, he's got a couple hours here, he can do it, and just that type of thing, so.
I mean, we should point out that PTS hasn't even pushed for this to happen, but maybe we should establish what the working groups are. Because then that allows people to decide what kind of time commitment they have, whether they're interested in any of the items.
Okay, so I think that I have, you know, we have a good idea of the 3 or 4. We can put them into a Google Doc and I'll send that out. Don't reply to me. Just go look at the document. Sign yourselves up for whatever seems interesting. And
Are we thinking these working groups will meet in addition, you know, before the next committee meeting? Or
that would be up to what group, yeah, up to each group. And again, that could be an email communication. If there's 4 of you in a working group, you can have an email discussion about that.
Zoom
And that
or
is not
something.
public record because it's not a quorum, and that's a quorum is a deciding factor, basically.
The meetings can be by, you know, if the subgroup wants to meet, it could be by Zoom or.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, you could meet for coffee, you could meet on Zoom, you could discuss on email. As long as it's less than 7, you're good.
Or go look at an intersection.
Yeah, you could go look at an intersection, take a coffee walk, look at an intersection,
Ride the bus together.
ride the bus. I'm still trying to ride the bus with my son, but you know what? It's so hard to ride on weekends. So, because my 3-year-old wants to ride the bus. He thinks it's cool. Okay. Anything else as we kind of wrap up here? What have I missed? What's on your hearts and minds?
Do we have ideas on what we'd like to cover at the next meeting?
Personally, I think I'd like to develop a list of some infrastructure projects to champion in the upcoming CIP.
With this starting reference to the Bike Ped plan,
Correct.
including your summary of the high priority.
Sure. Again, and that's all. And in this little document too, you know, the suggested priorities or whatever, I showed that the full list, like for the priorities, is, you know, if you go to the table of contents, it's under recommendations, non-infrastructure recommendations. You can find it on page 76. So this is just a snapshot of what is in that, you know, beautiful plan. And there's also maps in that plan. There's also different connectivity things, which we didn't really talk about, like the connections southeast to downtown, southwest to downtown. All of those kind of things are actually mapped out in a visual. Would it be helpful for more people to have it printed?
Yes.
Yes.
At least the whole, I mean, so that's that much paper. The one in the binder clip is the 2014 plan, but yeah, because I didn't the appendices. Yeah, it's a big thing.
If you want to save paper, you could print where the recommendations start.
Yeah, just the
There's
chunk
a
of.
huge, the toolkit section is,
And some of the
Very
appendices
large.
were like in the survey where
Yeah.
it lists the zip code on 5 different pages. of
Yeah.
Respondents you don't need.
Yeah, so
so happy to share this with you.
yeah, I think if we can print the recommendation.
Yeah.
You know, that would be helpful. And again, I wonder too if we can get like stuff up on screen when we're having discussions, you know, pulling from the plan so that we're all looking at the same stuff. That's my suggestion. We look at some of those infrastructure projects, champion CIP process. Else, I also included whenever UTL came and did that presentation at Sustainability Committee. I included those slides because again, they have great map. I'm a visual person, so they had great maps of how the master plan, which is something that the city refreshes every 10 years, is looking at the layout of Portsmouth and looking at pocket neighborhoods and connectivity and all of that kind of stuff. And I thought there was just an interesting overlay on what this group and what the bike ped plan can do for that. So in the what I thought was an email to everyone, so apologies, but in the packet, the agenda packet minutes that are on the website, there are slides there with some fun pictures. To me, it got me thinking like, oh yeah, you know, the West End is a pocket neighborhood, but it doesn't connect to here. Like, how can we connect it to da 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 da? So those are there as well.
And the master plan consultant used the bike ped plan as a key input, just like they used the climate action plan. So there already is a bridge there. It isn't like we've got to create it, but maybe just highlighting it and understanding it.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm just speaking to my brain and how it works, you know, seeing that and hearing that presented, looking through this, seeing it got me kind of thinking in these broader strokes, thinking in this bigger kind of picture and how we can do all that. Any other suggestions for agenda items?
I think maybe having an update or input or whatever is relevant from whatever subgroups end up taking shape. And then maybe part of that can be ideas from the subgroup about relevance for this committee going forward for those topics.
Yes.
With an eye to the goals in the plan.
Yeah, maybe like subgroup, we put out the information about possible subgroups. We can comment about that. We can solidify the subgroups, self-filter or self-select into them, and then maybe give ourselves a deadline of like a week prior to the next meeting. We add something we want to talk about.
Maybe on thoughts on committee opportunities for that subgroup.
Yeah, thanks, Bill.
That sounds great. Are we all in agreement?
When we sign up for subgroups, can we put our name and our email address so we have
Yes,
a
please.
way to know who we're connecting?
Yep.
I'll get that poll about possible days for you tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Know when your next meeting is.
Yes.
We
Great.
want to have a sort of a point of contact for the subgroup. So someone is sending out emails or checking back to try to get some thoughts together for the group, or just let that group do its thing.
Aside from me being the point of contact for committee stuff, you're saying for subgroup.
Like I'm happy to be a point of contact for the walk bike connectivity multimodal.
Yep.
Sure. I think we can, again, as we self-select into those.
Yep. Yes. Someone to herd the cats. Yes.
Do you have all of our email addresses?
No. Well, I could get them from your applications, but no, not in a concise form.
Do we have it in the invitation to this meeting, to this organizational meeting?
I'll get that.
Yeah.
I'll look for that, because it seems to me that I had the way of.
Can we get a list of members and emails?
Yeah. Anything else?
Just to clarify, we're gonna wait till the next meeting to actually start subgroups, or do we want to take a stab at it right now, just picking a leader for each working group?
I'm not sure. Well, I feel like people aren't going to self-select right now on the spot.
Okay.
And I think that's fair. So I think we could I think we can take a stab at it, because perfect is the enemy of good. So just go for it. All ideas are good ideas. and anyone who says differently is booted immediately. You get the boot. So to me, but again, also it's, end of school and July and. So, we all have stuff, but I think we can get that document, that Google Doc out to everyone. Get the connections of our email and list of people and all that stuff out to everyone. See if we can self-select by the end of the week. And then get started, at least having discussions in working groups without any pressure for a clean report back by the next meeting. Like, it's fine. Again, I'm just happy you're here. So that seemed like a fair.
Yeah, just thoughts, working thoughts,
Yeah,
which may help people who are not sure whether they're interested in the group or not.
Exactly.
So
You're still getting the ball rolling.
yes, exactly. And I think one of my favorite things is that there are a lot of new folks to the committee world, and I'm excited for that. So it's, again, the soft launch of working groups. It's fun. Anything else? All right. Great. Yeah.
Yeah,
move away.
can I move to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Yeah, that's- yeah, no, that- 12:30. My eyes are just.
Thank you.
You. Yes.